Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone. I hope all of you are fine. So today I will tell you about the very important things that we need to consider while the updation of the baseline. Last time I have told you what is the difference between the physical percentage complete and the duration percentage complete, and why we use duration percentage complete, in which cases we use the physical percentage complete. So today I will tell you the three options that we need select: retained logic, progress override, and the actual dates. So what is the difference between them and what is the out of sequence activity? So let's start and see what is the out of sequence activity. In out of sequence, progress occurs when activities begin, progress and finish earlier than expected based on the logic and activity durations in the latest schedule. An out of sequence activity is any activity that is in progress or has completed before one or more of its predecessors. So when you are giving the logics in the baseline, so you make some assumptions and give the logics based on those assumptions. So you try to give two types of logics. One is the hard logic and one is the soft logic. So what is the hard logic? The hard logic means that, for example, you cannot start the MEP works until you have completed the structural works for your basement floor or for your first floor, whatever. And also you cannot pour the slab unless you have completed the beams and columns. So this type of the relationship is called the hard logic. That is bound to be, bound to be respected in the while doing the construction. But there is another type of logic that is called the soft logic. For example, you have maybe you have assumed that okay, once we will complete the first we will start with the ducting ductworks. Okay, then after 2-3 days, maybe you have to start with the another activity, that is the hot and cold water piping. But maybe actually on the site, maybe the duct was not delivered and the piping was delivered, so you started piping earlier. So this type of logic is called the soft logic. So that can be altered during the construction. So what happens that mostly in the soft logic, sometimes on the site what happens that the activities start before its predecessor is started, and it progresses, or maybe sometimes it finishes earlier than its predecessor. So that type of activity is called the out of sequence activity. For example, here this is a very simple schedule. You have finished for 5-6 activities, and they are starting with the FS relationship. Now you see here that activity B is started earlier than activity A, but you have given its logic with the finish start, and it's already finished with the activity A is still not started. So this type of the activity is called the out of sequence activities. Now I will show you in real time schedule what is the out of sequence activity. So I have this schedule and I have here two activities. So if you see here, this activity is connected with this is the mobilization activity, and this another activity is erect scaffolding. So these activities are connected with the FS. So let's update these activities. So first I will assume that okay, this activity was started somewhere in maybe November, 14 November. So till now it is completed 75%. Okay, then the other activity is, so mobilization is still ongoing. Okay, it's not finished yet, but this erect scaffolding activities should have been started once the mobilization is finished, but now it is started with parallel. They start with the mobilization. So let's assume that it's already started with 10 days. Start with 10 days with the mobilization. So it's completed like 25%. Now I will schedule this. You are saying that the activity, this erect scaffolding activity is started out of sequence. Okay. So if I will show you its predecessor was mobilization, and it was connected with the FS relationship. Now where you can see when you are doing the update, so maybe you will update maybe 50 activities. Now where you can see which activities are started out of sequence. So you can go here in the view log option, and you can see here out of sequence activities. So in the errors and warning sections, out of sequence activities, it will show you that okay, this erect scaffolding activity is started out of sequence. So okay, the next thing is retain logic versus progress override. So what is this thing? So if you go to options here, so you will see here three different options. When scheduling progress activity, use retained logic, progress override, actual dates. So you have three options here. Now I will tell what is the difference between these three options. When your activities are progressing or as per your logic, so whatever the option you choose here, retained logic, progress override, actual dates, there is no difference. But whenever any of your activity has been started out of sequence, then it will make some difference. I will show you what will be the difference. So consider that your out of sequence activity is still progressing. So we have a simple four activities here, A, B, C, D. So now activity C was connected with activity B with the FS relationship. Okay, you have given this relationship. But once we have updated the schedule, we saw on the side that actually this activity C has been started much earlier than activity B. So still activity B has not been started and activity C is progressing. So this blue line is showing that this activity C is progressing. Now this activity C is clearly started out of sequence. So you have choose the retained logic option. What will happen that the remaining duration of the out of sequence activity will be scheduled to begin after its predecessor is finished. Okay, so its remaining duration is 2 days. So this 2 days is scheduled after activity B. So still it is respecting the logic that you have given in your schedule. The retained logic option will respect the your logic. But when you choose the progress override option, what will happen that it will override your logic. So this remaining duration will be scheduled after the data date. So it will not observe the logic, it will not follow the logic that you have given in your schedule. So you can clearly see that activity C, now it is progressing after the data date, its remaining duration, and then when its activity C is finishing, activity D is also starting. So these forecasted dates, they will differ once you will choose different options. Now I will show you in the schedule, real-time schedule. So now we will see that which option we have chosen. So we will choose retained logic option and we will schedule. So now you see that activity mobilization, this activity is progressing and this activity erect scaffolding, it has started out of sequence. So now its remaining duration is 7 days. So you can clearly see that its remaining duration is not starting here. Ideally it should have started here, okay, after the data date, but no, it is remaining duration is scheduled after finishing of its predecessor activity. So it is respecting the logic. So based on this logic, it will give you these forecasted dates. Okay. But what will happen that if we choose another option, progress override? If I choose progress override and schedule it, now you can see that its remaining duration is not. It is scheduled after our data date. So it is not respecting the logic anymore once you have chosen the progress override option. Okay. Now the question rises that you are allowed to use this progress override as a contractor, I have seen that we are not allowed to choose the progress override option, because what will happen that it will ignore those, it will ignore the logics what you have given your schedule. So maybe your schedule will become messy after the updation. So now what is the option that we can choose and we can resolve this out of sequence activity? So my suggestion is that you must always use this retained logic option, okay? And what you can do that, now a gap is appearing here, okay? So in order to remove this gap, we need to do that, we need to change the relationship here. So we will make it start to start with some days, for example 8 days, and then we will schedule it. So now you see that it is progressing with the start to start. So out of sequence is finished. We'll go to view log, and warning errors out of sequence activities 0. So this is retained logic versus the progress override. So this was the case when your activity is progressing, okay? Out of sequence activity is still progressing. So retained logic versus progress override versus actual dates. So there is another option, third option. If your out of sequence activity is finished, so if your out of sequence activity is still progressing, so what is the actual dates option? So if you choose the actual dates option when your activity is still progressing, so it will behave same like the retained logic. So what we will do that, we will again change here the relationship, okay, and we will choose this option actual dates, and we will schedule it. Now it is behaving same as of the retained logic, this third option actual dates. Now this was the case when your activity was progressing. So this out of sequence activity is still progressing, 25% completed. Now if your out of sequence activity is finished, what will happen? So if out of sequence activity is finished, so this actual dates option, what will happen that it will behave like the progress override option. If your out of sequence activity is finished, if you see here this case, so activity C is finished, so activity D is not starting after activity B like the retained logic. Now the actual date option is behaving like the progress override option once this out of sequence activity is finished. So what we will do that, now we have chosen the progress override option, actual date option, and our out of sequence activity was still progressing, but I will complete here this out of sequence activity. So now you see that all of its successor activities, they have moved back. So now they are progressing after the data date, they are not progressing after this activity. So this actual date option is behaving like the progress override option once your out of sequence activity is finished. So this was the difference between these three options: retained logic, progress override, and the actual dates once you are doing the update. So some more things in the options chart I will show you. So you don't need to check any of these boxes. Ignore relationships to and from other projects, make open ended activities critical, schedule automatically when a change effect. So I have chosen this option, use expected finish dates, and I always use this retained logic. So calculate start to start lag from early start, okay. Define critical activities, so total float less than or equal to 0 hour. So that is you can define the critical activities here. So in one of my project, it was a very long 5-year project. So in that project we were considering the critical activities with the float of 30 days. Okay, so instead of 0 hours, so we will mention here the 30 days. So near critical activities, so we were assuming those activities as the critical because it was a long project and we have a very big floats. So calculate float based on finished data of each project. So compute total float like finished float, simulate finish, money service finish, and calendar for scheduling relationship lag predecessor activity calendar. So that's the sum of the options. Okay. So here calculate multi-part float path. So don't need to choose this option. So we'll close it. So another option. Define critical activities based on the float. So also you can choose option this longest path. Okay. So I hope that so up to today's lecture we have discussed these three things. So in the next lecture I will tell more some of the more things about the updation updation. You need once while you're doing the update and you have finished your update, you need to apply 2-3 filters to check that activities which are writing on the data date, okay, and activities whose remaining duration is 0. So these two filters that you need to apply, and some of the more few things that are very important to make an accurate update of your baseline. So these things we will discuss in the next lecture. So up to next lecture. Thank you.